Hello, back again, part 4. I know you are just glued to the edge of your seat to learn about the New Deal and the Great Depression. So, here we go. You only need the edge, right? Not the whole thing. Okay. So like I said, some of these pieces of legislation don't work. Social Security Act, good. Resettlement Administration, not good. Emergency relief works to some extent. So when it comes to the next election, 1936, now, just for the sake of keeping things in place, Hitler is now, when does he get? I think he's in power. I think he becomes chancellor. Is it 36 or? I think it's 36. But again, Germany's not our enemy, so that's not really, no one's really worried about that. So he, we are technically friends with Germany at this point. We host German ambassadors and things. When the Hindenburg crashes, oh, the humanity! We have a little. It's a Nazi ship, and we have a little memorial service, and everyone's hailing Hitler at the memorial, so that's fun. But anyway, that's where we are. So in 1936, FDR's opponents think he's going to get beaten. They don't like, the socialism. It's kind of funny. Everything old is new again. But he wins basically the whole dang country. He's very popular. He's popular among rurals. He's popular among urban. He's popular among the old and the young. And he, through his efforts and the Brain Trust and the Congress, all working together, they managed to at least, get a grip on the Depression. Now, real economic recovery is not going to happen until World War II and the production and all of that's going to take place. But, we have the tide starting to turn against, abject poverty and economic collapse. And that's because of what FDR does. And he wins handily, right? And he's obviously going to win a few more times. Okay. So, the West, is going to need a lot more support and help. Not only do they have, the problems that the whole country has, they also have people leaving the East Coast for the West, hoping to find a new life, hoping to strike it rich out there. So that's part of the issue. But we also have what's called the Dust Bowl. And this is an ecological situation where there are windstorms, and part of it is from, fields lying fallow during World War I when people aren't there to farm. And then there's, just windstorms. And basically, it's extreme dust everywhere. It blows the topsoil away. And people get pneumonia. There's all kinds of problems. And you can't farm because the topsoil, the part with the nutrients, is gone. So I'll try and find, there's some really good videos on the Dust Bowl that aren't too long. I'll try and find some for you because it's really, it's kind of that where the nature and then man come together to make everything horrible. So, that's fun. Anyway, there's a lot of racism against Mexican Americans, Mexican immigrants. Now remember that at this point we still hadn't owned Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. Hadn't even been 100 years yet, right? But we still consider people who were indigenous immigrants, even though we took them over in the Mexican Wars. But anyway, whatever. It is what it is. We'll talk more about what happens to Mexican Americans later on. But there is rampant racism against Mexican Americans. All right. Native Americans. All right. So we know, the story of Native Americans and how that's gone. We've got an organization called the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And actually, in my previous career, I used to work with them a lot for helping them procure items through the federal government. And they bought a lot of combs. I don't know why. Lots and lots of plastic black combs. That's just a little piece of trivia there. But anyway, FDR wants to address these issues. And he appoints John Collier to help fix some of the issues that Native Americans were having. The Indian Reorganization Act redistributes land to tribes. and that's great. And to try and bring some of these relief programs to Native American groups. Now, not everyone qualified. There are issues that come up with that, but at least we have a president who's trying to address the issues that have been in place since the Spanish walked on the soil, right? So that's pretty amazing. All right, we talked about this already, that FDR tried to make sure that people are able to utilize their skills with dignity and in a meaningful way during the Depression. So the support for the arts is huge, and that's actually going to become a piece again in World War II, because Hermann Goering, which is one of Hitler's henchmen, is obsessed with art and steals so much art across Europe. And FDR and Churchill are going to come together and create the Monuments Men. Now, that's a movie that they made. It's got John Goodman. It's got, super handsome guy. What's his name? George Clooney. Sorry. And, they rescue the art. It's a true story. So it's great. A president that values art. Woohoo! All right. Now, this is one of the downsides, one of the things that people didn't like. Remember, we have our 9 Supreme Court justices. And so FDR proposed what they called court packing, adding new judges when the older ones got old, not firing them, but I think it was doubling, but it was increasing significantly the number of Supreme Court justices, and people saw this as an attempt to make sure that his legislation was held true and he got favorable decisions in the Supreme Court. And so this is going to lose him some support from senators because they see it as a way of packing everything full of Democrats. You can kind of understand that. How people would react to that, because that would be a modern thing too. People wouldn't like that. Ladies, what happens for ladies? We continue to see women grow in the workforce. Women are no longer satisfied being at home and working in the kitchen, and that's not really the thing that women want to do. And World War II is only going to make that more obvious, because we're going to have women, being part of the war effort. Eleanor Roosevelt, who in her own right, separate from her husband, is quite a humanitarian and spends the rest of her life fighting for the rights of people. Oh, look, here comes the second cat. Oh, what are you doing? Oh my God, what happened? Oh, great. Women. Okay. There we go. Thank you, Peaches. Okay. She is the reason that the United Nations has the Declaration of Human Rights that guarantees specific rights for all people in the globe. That's pretty amazing. And FDR is going to appoint Frances Perkins I think she's the Secretary of Labor. And she got my vote when they wanted to had the survey about putting a woman on the money. Now, Harriet Tubman won, and she's a Marylander. I'm down for Harriet Tubman, but Trump put the kibosh on all that, so they're not doing it now. Minorities and the New Deal. As you know, we've been talking about race issues across, the development of America, and FDR is not. He's here and there, right? So FDR is really worried about not being reelected, and we're going to see some choices that he makes that are going to leave him with not necessarily a great legacy towards African Americans, towards Jewish refugees in World War II. But he does appoint African Americans to cabinet positions, and because of the economic changes, because of the radical nature of the New Deal, many African Americans become Democrats. And I remember all this time we've been talking, the Republican Party was the party that supported, African Americans and citizenship and all, we're coming out of the Reconstruction, all that. So the Republicans were, seen as radicals in their views towards African Americans, and the Southerners, white Southerners, were always Democrats. Those, strong Southern values, right? And now we start to see things shift. It won't really shift all the rest of the way till the 60s, but, And FDR has, it's sort of, I don't want to say under the table, but it's not an official cabinet position like, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of State, Health and Human Services, like all those people. But he has a black cabinet to help him try and, in some ways, deal with the race issues that are facing African Americans. All right. We got a couple minutes here. I'm going to blast through this. All right. So 1930s, we see lots of movies. We talked about radio. It's the same as the 20s. That glamour of Hollywood kind of filters out into American society. And like I said, we start to see things changing. And here you can see all the things that happened. We see some economic recovery. They tried cutting back the New Deal, and then it had disastrous consequences. So there you go. Now, a lot of people didn't like the expanded power of the federal government, and we still see both Democrats and Republicans slashing some of the safeties that were put into place, some of the regulations and things. But overall, the New Deal helps people. It helps industry. It helps farmers. It was a good thing. And like I said early on in video 1, I think that the banking reforms are still in effect, the FDIC. Pretty amazing. We're done. All right. Video 4. Okay, my angels. I'll see you later on. And for World War II next time. Bye.